Wow, there's another one.
Maria said she was going to be late.
No.
I thought Manuel and or Roy and who was the other? Oh, Jackie went.
I saw Roy come in.
Mhm.
No, so it's only gonna be short.
Hmm?
It's only gonna be short.
Oh, right there.
Well, yeah.
Ready, Byron? Ready? Okay. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to call the City Council City Manager Work Session to order. I believe Ms. Duran, Councilor Duran, and Councilor Barone are here. Councilor Linton. Okay, maybe she's just late. Okay. So this evening on our agenda, this is our work session where the council takes some time to discuss issues a little bit more deeply. And so this evening, we're going to talk about broadband and our safety plan. So you want to kick that off, Mr. Smith?
Been working on this issue for a while, just kind of doing some studying and looking at it. So we want to give you the latest update and kind of look for some thoughts about next steps.
Welcome, Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. So Byron's right. This is an effort that we kind of started to do a deep dive in the last couple of years. We understood there was some challenges in our community. Certainly COVID and the impacts of that really highlighted the challenges within the city of Hermiston. And so you kind of presented a request for us to take a deep dive and study what it would look like to help solve some of those problems. I've been in front of you several times over the last couple of years. This is the latest iteration of kind of where we're at. Okay, so tonight I'm going to talk about where we're at in the progress of this, kind of what we found out, talk about provider options, a new opportunity that has come to our community, and then at the end of this, kind of get some direction, support, kind of what you're thinking, next steps, and where you want Byron and I to, our city manager Smith and I, to direct our energies. So as everybody knows, if you, based on where you live in the city of Hermiston, your opportunities for not only providers, but speed is different. But when we look at broadband outside of Hermiston, when the state and the federal government sees us, this is what they see. So this is the FCC reported broadband availability within the city of Hermiston. And as you can see there, the feds in the state essentially view us as 100% covered. We know that's not the truth. So we actually went in and did a deep dive analysis, actually went through address by address, location by location, went out, got real speeds information from the work we did. And based on red is the worst, the darker the red, the worse it is. These are the areas within the city of Hermiston that have low provider opportunity, no provider opportunity, and low speeds. So this is the area of need within the city. So what we found out based on those deep dives and actually getting real user information is a third, almost 2/3 of our community don't have the bare minimum 23.5 standard download speeds. So 41% of the city of Hermiston is served with 25.3. And almost 60% is unserved with the bare minimum of 25.3, and the new standard is 100 by 20, almost 60% there. And this, we also looked at every business, location, facilities, medical institutions, schools, government facilities, all that within these census blocks. Then we decided to take a little bit deeper dive into this, and we wanted to know, the original plan was to connect all of the city of Hermiston facilities with a closed loop network. And if we connect all our city facilities, it kind of circles around the whole community. And if we had to prioritize, how would we prioritize any available funding or work that we did? So some of the things that we focused on were low-income areas of the city of Hermiston, seniors and school-aged children, and home businesses. So when we overlay that data on top of that map, these were the areas that kind of rose to the top. If we were going to focus in an area, how would we focus and what would we look at, trying to target first? And we felt these were the highest need areas in our community, focusing on the have-nots. So this caused Byron and I to have a lot of discussion, and this pivoted us to kind of a new concept. The concept is, everybody needs the availability of at least access. Then they adopt, then they utilize. And we found that the utilization within a community creates the real community benefit. And so how could we maximize the community benefit side of things? And that's led us to a unique model. Anybody who's heard any conversations about a city called Hammond, Idaho, they've implemented a new model. It's an open access model. Other communities have then adopted this model, and there's quite a few throughout the country that are looking at this kind of concept. So how an open network works is it's one common fiber network that runs throughout your community. It's built to be open, so anybody can access it, both public and private. And the benefit is you're connected to every house and business and building in your community. And so with this common utility, everybody's connected. It would be owned by the city of Hermiston, and this would be for us to control our future on the digital infrastructure. And it's separated into kind of a unique structure. And so the breakout of this structure is really where the value is created. So the way to kind of think about it is the bottom level is this digital infrastructure layer. And if you think about it of like roads, cities in a community. So the city would own the roads or the broadband network to every house and building in the community. That's the part the city controls. The next layer, once it gets to the customer, the end-use customer, this is where the network layer comes in. This would be a private party who would manage the network for the community, provide the access point for the community. So the city's part would be the actual wires to the locations. Then this layer goes on top to the actual residents. And then the very top layer, the end-use layer, is the service layer. This is where the private sector providers. So we would open it up not just to one provider, but any provider who subscribed to the system. And so all the current providers that are in our community today would now all of a sudden have access to every location within the city. You can then leverage this concept even further and partner with the local hospitals, the county, the school district, and they could create a layer. So if a household did not have internet, but they had a telehealth appointment, the hospital could create a connection to that location and do telehealth even without an internet connection. So once you leverage the resources, then you open up the opportunities for real community benefit. Same with the school district. The school district could have a layer on there where they can log in and they could set the parameters of between the end of school and 9 o'clock, you would have access to internet within your household with school-aged children. They could set up and determine who has access, when, how, and what. So on top of that, it wouldn't require a service provider, but the school district could potentially step in and help subsidize some of this, the hospital, the county. It really creates a unique model to serve your community and give access to everybody. So we looked at the pros and cons of doing something like this. What are the pros and cons of it? The way we have it set up today, the city of Hermiston is not involved in any digital infrastructure. We go through a traditional ISP provider, internet service provider. They deal with it. The city's not part of it. The difficult part about that is no guarantee 100% of the premises will be connected. We've seen that, and that's why we've worked on it. We don't control timelines of build outs. There's no recourse for the city with service levels or quality of the service. Looking at where funds could come from with these future investment dollars at the state and federal level, taxpayer funds could be used to subsidize one private provider versus this model would open it up to everybody. It would still require us to participate in the franchise agreements, things like that. Now, if we own our own digital infrastructure, it does encourage competition. It goes the opposite way. It encourages competition because everybody has access to every resident. It reduces the cost in serving the municipal and anchor sites of our community. We leverage this resource. We build coalitions and partnerships. And then there's potential new revenue streams. We spend approximately $100,000 in internet bills a year for the city. The tough part about that is the oversight cost of broadband. You know, what would it actually cost us to do that? So that's where the risk comes in. You know, undertaking this sort of effort, this sort of level comes with a lot of risk. The payback is tied into adoption. You know, there's already providers in the community. If they choose not to switch over, they don't use our network. You know, it changes the financials of it significantly. And so that adoption rate is where the risk comes in. We make the investment and then we hope we get adoption, but if we don't, it comes with that financial commitment, which is a lifelong commitment, because once we get into it, we're into it. So it's not without risk and it's not without challenges. And so Byron and I worked on this for the last probably year, just really understanding if this made sense or if this didn't. And then in 2023, a fiber company who's not currently serving within the city approached us and said that they are interested in connecting all the businesses, all the buildings, all the residents within the city of Hermiston. They have an aggressive timeline and they're interested as a private entity to come in and do the connections that we were talking about. They've asked for a co-location agreement with the city of Hermiston where they would use our IT space. And if we allow them access to our IT space, they're interested in trading services for this co-location. And I talked about our financial commitment for this is around $100,000 a year. And so we've had some initial conversations with them. We've talked with them and they shared the map of where they're going. It doesn't connect all our facilities, but it connects a majority of them. We're looking at connecting some of the entities that we own, like the water treatment plant on Buttercreek Highway. That's going to be a cost because they're only intending right now where it makes an economic case for them. And they see an economic case within the city of Hermiston to make this type of investment. So as Byron and I went through the pros and cons list and what we were working on, we also went through the budget issues from the previous year. You know, this would be a new department within the city. If we were to take it on, if we were to build this digital infrastructure that the city would own and control, the costs were unknown as far as certainty, like how much would we really be committing at the end of the day? And we also had the conversation, if a private entity comes into the community, does that meet the community's needs? Does that meet your needs as council? You asked us to look into this because not everybody had access. Not everybody had speed. The speeds and the access that they're talking about check the box. And so we went back and forth and looked at it. And so as this became more real, we started stepping back a little bit more because of the situation we were in as a city, financial time commitments. And so we were about ready to bring this conversation to you. And then about a month ago, our provider, our consultant who's done the work with us came to us with a new option. And so I think to close this part of the presentation, I think Byron and I were feeling more in the direction of this fiber option. They're coming in regardless. They've made a commitment to the city. So the city of Hermiston is their jump off point. From the city of Hermiston, their plan is to go north and to connect the city of Umatilla and then go south and connect the city of Stanfield and Echo. So essentially, within the cities of the west end of Umatilla County, this company is interested in coming in and providing service. They project that they could have the city of Hermiston built out by the end of August. So with those things in mind, we thought that the situation we were in, it was probably the direction that we might want to recommend to you because we were getting to the point to come to you with recommendations of what direction to go. And then a month ago, the consultant we worked with brought us a new concept. So a company that they have partnered with previously does these type of networks. And they came in and said, hey, Nate, and Byron, we want you to take a look at something. So they pulled up a map of Umatilla County. This is Umatilla County. The highlighted part is the west end of Umatilla County. And there is a different situation and challenges. So in this section, there's 16,000 premises. Of this, 12,000 are underserved and 9,000 are 12,000 are unserved, and 9,000 are underserved. A big section of this is also qualified for federal BEAD funding. And so if you dig in with anchor institutions and the real need, this shows the real need outside of the city limits of Hermiston. So we went in and kind of mapped this, what it would look like. So the challenges we're facing as the city of Hermiston are exponentially worse the second you get out of each cities in this region. There's a lot of need, and the opportunities are smaller for them to be successful. They can't leverage a model like we leveraged, county alone, Echo alone, Stanfield alone. Umatilla probably has the resources to go out and they've looked at it. But this would be a model where we would leverage the connections within all the cities and build this concept of a regional network where we would own and control it throughout the West County. So as we talk about this, Byron and I had a meeting with the city managers a little over a week ago, introduced this concept to them, said, what are your thoughts on it? And there was interest. The county was interested as well. I've had a preliminary conversation with the county commissioners about this. But before we went any further, we wanted to know who was interested, who wasn't, to bring it to you to say, is this a valuable use of Byron and I, City Manager Smith's time? Is this a valuable use for our time? Knowing what we know, does it create a need to all ships rise? Or do we want to look at it more like we only have so many resources within the city? Our cities are getting connected. This is an effort for somebody else. And so I think the direction side of things is we're looking, is this worth a conversation to keep going? Or is this a conversation of we should look more Hermiston centric, or let the private entities fill the needs and maybe they make a business case to push out in the counties? We felt that this is an opportunity, kind of a one-time opportunity with the federal dollars to push out past the city limits, to leverage all of our accounts and all of our resources, a higher level of funding, to come together and create a regional solution versus a Hermiston solution. And so Byron and I have been talking about this pretty intently over the last couple of weeks, and wanted to get it in front of you guys to start getting some initial feedback, thoughts, what it would look like. So what I would be asking if you wanted us to move forward would be, first of all, determining who's in and who's not. That's the big thing. And the way we view it is it's all or nothing. You know, two of us can't do this effort. We don't have the resources, the financial model wouldn't make sense. And so it would take a West End regional effort. We need to get those commitments, at least to start the process, to get to a point where we can make some decisions. Not saying a decision, yes or no, we're going to do it, but get the decision far enough along where we could say, this is worth more effort to get to the next step. The city of Hermiston's model's pretty well finalized, but it's how does that affect when you include the other cities in that regional county to the financial part of it. We would also be looking to talk with the anchor institutions, the hospital, the school district, places like that, to see what their level of interest is, if they could come in as a financial partner, or if they would want to use an in-use agreement, something like that, but who would be interested in doing it. What the governance model would look like, that's probably one of the biggest pieces. You know, the city of Hermiston, with the amount of connections and the people and the resources, is going to have a higher level of commitment. You know, we want to make sure that the board that's overseeing this has equity in our investment and the vote in the direction of an entity. You know, it wouldn't be equal votes, because that wouldn't make sense for the city of Hermiston either. How would we determine that governance model? How would we direct decisions? If you guys are interested or not, these are kind of where we would look at going. And then there's also opportunities with BEAD funding. That's around a little under 600 million with the state of Oregon. But we feel like with this open network model, the benefit to the region, we would be real competitive in those grant funding opportunities, especially if we leveraged our relationships with the ancillary beneficiaries of this. So that's kind of where we're at. Mr. Smith, do you have anything that you feel like I'm missing? So this is the part for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Are you looking for some sort of direction or consensus of direction tonight on which direction you would like us to go? Because you're kind of presenting three different options, right?
I think tonight for what we're looking at is, what I'm looking for is, do we continue a conversation for the region? I think that's kind of where we're looking.
So the other two are off the table for further.
If you say don't consider the option for a regional solution, then Byron and I would go back and fine tune our recommendations between the A and B model and bring that back to you as a more like final decision. This is where we're going. I think the presentations to give you the scope of the project and should we put effort and time into this, because this would be a new effort. The other two efforts are kind of finalized, or at least further down the road where we'd be looking for a final decision.
You were kind of vague in your presentation of this new partner that came to you through our consultant.
Yep.
This is a known entity that's had success in other communities across the state or the nation that would be partnering or working with. Can you explain that a little bit?
You bet. So I referenced two partners, unnamed partners. There's one fiber entity that's committed to coming into Hermiston and jump off to do the connections. That is a partner that's done 2 cities in the state of Washington. They've completed Yakima. They're in the final stages of Milton or Walla Walla. And once those efforts are done, they're coming in. So they've already had success in their model to build out quickly and get their cities connected. So that's one entity I referenced. The entity that approached for the regional solution is a national company that prioritizes open access networks. So they're a private equity firm that invests in open access. Their mission of the organization is to create open access, not a single provider network. So they've invested in those. When they looked at that map, they saw value. They said, this is a place of value where we would see a return on our investment. So we potentially could put private funds in there and help build that. And then they also are tied into that mid layer of the network operations and build out. They're tied to them as well. So that's where they saw the interest to come in.
So there's no identified fiber company that they're partnering with? I mean, that would go out to bid of some sort, or?
So
private.
they do represent that, but we wouldn't be able, because of a governmental entity, we would have to create a procurement process and we would go through a procurement process. They would be interested in bidding on that process, but we couldn't select them to partner with to move forward. They would have to win that procurement process. And there's other companies that invest in models like that would be interested as well. And we had those conversations that we want to ensure that whatever company we partner with has a long-term proven track record of delivering on their commitments. I think that is paramount. They would have to have a long-term proven track record.
Yeah, because I think one of the things that, sometimes free money sometimes brings out unsavory characters, right? And so we want to make sure that our partnerships are people committed to our community. I mean, first and foremost, I think up here, everyone wants to see the success of Hermiston, right? And so we want long-term relationships and proven success, and people that are committed to this project, not just looking to make a dime or a nickel off of our community, that they're actually of similar mindset where we're trying to provide a new service model to our community. It's almost, come to the point where it's as important as water and wastewater.
Right.
And so is this a new, expected entity that cities provide? So is this company in the business of providing that sort of service, or are they in the business of making money off of our community?
Right. No, that's an excellent point. And as more federal funds become available, the more companies are going to be offering products and promises to get your letters of support, to get federal funds, to come in and build infrastructure. Where this model differs is we're not incentivizing a private company to build one single access point. We're building and owning our own network to offer everybody access. So we're building roads in our community, digital roads in our community that any business can operate on. We don't pick who operates on those. But we own the infrastructure, maintain the infrastructure, and manage how it's invested and maintained.
And Mr. Mayor, and I think that procurement process that Nate talked about, we'd have to design that to help us the best we could come to understand where the potential partner would be on that spectrum of how committed are they to us and to this region versus just trying to make a dollar.
Right. Yeah.
And just to be clear, the only conversations is just at a very high level with the county and the region, just the concept.
Mhm.
Like we haven't committed ourselves or done anything more other than, is there interest in starting a conversation? And that's where we're at in front of you guys tonight.
Well, I like the concept, frankly, of just regionalization. It's worked really well for us for a lot of other purposes, West End Umatilla County, but it also kind of covers our UGB and some of our county residents that probably don't have the greatest access as well. And so a partnership with the county and trying to get faster accessible internet out to some of our more rural parts of the region, I think makes a lot of sense. How about other questions? Yeah.
So you don't have any way, or you just haven't expressed that this company that you're talking about, you can't ascertain their track record?
No.
Their, references or, you know,
So
what do we know about it?
the company who would be investing, the private equity firm that would potentially be interested in coming in and investing, that company.
Mhm.
So Byron and I met with the individual November of 2022 with this original concept for Hermiston only. And we felt comfortable in our conversations with them in the background and the work they're doing to at least continue that conversation. I don't have any hesitancy talking about with a private equity firm or the firm that would manage or build out the infrastructure. I don't have any concerns about starting those conversations. Proven track record. So yeah. Does that answer your question?
Okay, but you said someone recently came.
Right, and we don't know a lot about them. We've just been told they're a company that's interested, but they don't really want to disclose a whole lot until they know they have a solid partnership.
But we have to.
Well, that's what, I mean, I think the thing that we would do is what we're looking for tonight is, do we keep going down and find out more and see if this is a real thing? Or do we just stop and then we come back with some maybe recommendations on another topic?
And I think, Counselor, maybe I was unclear on that. So we wouldn't necessarily have to use any private equity firms to do this work. We could leverage our finances across the region and bond against that to pay for this. And then also look at BEAD funding, federal and state funding. So we would take the third party investor out of it. They don't have to participate. But if the financial model, if we significantly benefit and we can do this with a partner that we would trust, I think we would look at that. But we're going to have to go down that effort to determine what it's going to cost us doing it on our own, just with federal funding, and what it would look like to bring in a private equity firm. This active electronics layer, that's maybe where I may have confused you, because we would use a private network operator to manage that network, to do the construction, the build out, the connections, that layer. And that's where we would go out and procure those services. So we would go out in a bid process to say, this is what we want built. This is how we want it connected. These are the number of houses. And then we would bid that. And the same with the electronics network. So NoaNet, who's done significant work, they brought in the dark fiber build in the early 2000s, connecting a lot of the federal resources. They do this type of work. Another company is called Silver Star. They do this type of work. But these are proven track record companies that come in and do the construction and the network management. So those are proven technologies, and we have, we certainly would design our proposal to ensure that they met a minimum standard, which was very high.
And also, I have one more question, sorry. You made the statement that cost is unknown. And I'm not sure what level you were addressing that to.
So the cost is known, what our investment, we've done enough engineering for the city of Hermiston's part. But the cost is unknown to do a regional solution because we don't know, first of all, who's in and who's out, how far we're gonna push that east boundary, how far south we would push the south boundary. You know, there's gonna be an economic case where it just doesn't make sense to get so far south in Umatilla County or so far east in Umatilla County. So the map we've drawn, we have a rough idea of what that would cost, but until we finalize partners, like, hey, I want to be involved in this, I don't. These are how far we want to go. I can't really give you a good understanding of the economic case.
Does this delay, this regionalization delay an August opening date? You know, your other proposal said we could have this up and running in August. So this conversation, would it push this and how far?
So the August date is a private firm not using any federal funds. They've committed to Hermiston. If we participate in this conversation, it potentially could. There's risk. They would say, well, if they're interested in going and doing this own, does our financials change? So there's always risk of starting any effort like this. Same with any other provider. If we show a lot of direction, like we get down the road, they may pull back. Certainly, that's the risk we would take in entering these type of decisions or direction.
I guess I was referring about your third option you presented tonight.
Okay.
If we, because you're asking for some consolidated or regionalization, or do we continue to have conversations regionally versus just a
Right.
Hermiston-centric conversation? If we continue the regional conversation, how long is this going to delay our development?
So the rough schedule would be ready for BEAD applications at the end of this calendar year. So if we did a regional, we would have to be pretty efficient to be in a position of, we would set it up and go no-go decisions over the next 6 to 7 months that we would bring back for approval. Hey, are we still interested? These are the financials. But if everything worked in that direction, we would be applying for funding at the end of the year, early next year. Then when those are awarded, as soon as we could get construction going. As far as the entity for the August build out, that's all private money, a private company. They're doing that because they see an economic case within the city of Hermiston. So their plan is to connect almost all of the city of Hermiston without any of these discussions.
Other questions? Yeah, Councilor Brown.
Thank you for your presentation, Nate. Just a question, just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, both, I believe option B and C, are those providing, I guess, internet services for residents alike? Is that correct?
Yes, so if the private entity came in, they're planning on connecting to all the residents and businesses in the community. Yes. Option C, which is the regional network, we would own the infrastructure and make all those connections versus a private ISP.
Okay,
So let's call it that. Option 1, Hermiston only, city owns the infrastructure. Option 2 is city does nothing and the private ISP does the connections and we walk away. Option 3 is a regional concept that we would have to investigate.
thank you for clarifying. I know we've had this discussion for quite a while now, and I know originally it involved just with city facilities and being interconnected. And originally I had an opinion more on, staying with the city facilities, but as our conversations evolved and also just doing, just personal things and my own work and things like that, I see a huge benefit from residents, everyone being, or at least having an option for connectivity. I really like the regional one because I'm just school district. I mean, putting my teacher hat on, I know a lot of the kids that come to our school are more than just kids that go to Hermiston. A lot of kids are in the county. We have kids that regularly come from maybe other communities into our school. And just knowing that, as the mayor was stating, internet's becoming like water, sewer, a necessity. And studies are showing more, at least in some of the trainings I've been to, that, these basic necessities like internet provide, kids a huge opportunity for growth and success in the future versus kids that don't have access to that at a young age. And so I'm really fond of the idea of making a regional effort, and I'm willing to hear more information on that.
Thank you, Council.
Councilor Lynn?
Okay. I'm not sure which one it was, 1, 2, or 3, but you were talking about, you were talking about 100,000 a year commitment from the city. So which option was that? Was that the one that the city owns?
So the city, that's the city's contribution currently. That's what the city pays for internet right now.
Mhm.
So all of our locations with the internet services provided, that's currently in our budget. That's what we pay today.
Okay. And you were saying, with option 2, that the city does nothing. So is that a private company coming in and they're putting the bill for all of it and the city doesn't have to come up with any money at all?
So that would be a private internet service provider that the city would not put any money towards, but the city also would have no management or control or cost. They would handle it the same as a Blue Mountain Network or a Charter Communication. They would be another company similar, where you could, if they were serving your home, you would have the ability to sign up for their service, and they would be responsible for the cost of that, and you would be responsible for your cost of the monthly payment.
Okay, so that's which option is that?
That
2
would
or
be
3?
2.
That would be 2?
Yeah.
Privately owned. And so with the regional,
Go ahead.
okay. So with the regional one, would that be the same? It'll be a private company, but they'll cover everyone, the entire county, or how would that go?
So option 3 would be us entertaining a conversation with the region about building our own digital infrastructure, owning, managing, and then opening it up to private internet providers to be the end use
Mhm.
sign up. So you as a residential customer would have this box in your house. On this box, it would give you an option of all the providers. And then you would sign up directly with them in option 3 model. And that model would connect everybody in the West County. So the school district, in theory, could have access to every member in West County. The hospital could have access to every member in West County. The city, any internet provider that signed up would have access. So every location would be connected.
Okay, so with every area connected, but we would have to pay for the building, for building this system? Okay. And so,
Well, it would be a regional effort, but as the largest city in West County, proportionally, we would probably have a larger percentage of that.
and so you were saying earlier that you didn't have the cost of what it would cost the city if we were to go that route.
We have the cost to do it just within the city limits, but we don't have the cost estimates to do a regional solution.
Can you share what the cost would be just for the city?
It was approximately a little under 5 million, 4.65 million.
Okay, and and that's to build it.
That's to build it correct.
Okay, then after that, we then charge people to, like you were saying, you have the option of which one you would pick, or,
Correct. So the way the cost breakdown works, there's a cost for the digital infrastructure layer that is similar to like our monthly service charge for the infrastructure that we put on utility bills. Then there's the electronics layer, that's the network management and maintenance. There would be a portion of that bill. And then whatever internet subscriber you paid, you would pay them directly. So your bill would be comprised of 3 parts. And we've modeled what that would be for, a service, and it was around $35 a month. That's what we were modeling the cost to make a rate of return that would pay for the $5 million investment and get to that break-even point based on adoption rates. Whereas I think the new provider after the first year incentive is around that $40 mark. I think my current, I have Charter internet at home, and my 2-year entry was $64.99. And then next year it goes up to $79.99. So that's kind of some comparable cost comparables of what we would be looking at.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You bet, Counselor. Thank you.
Counselor McCarthy?
First of all, thank you for this presentation. This is exactly the kind of information I'm interested in. Is it possible to get this information outside of the normal notes we receive for the next council meeting? Just receive this as its own set of slides?
Yeah.
Thank you. Could we go back to the slide where you mentioned something about around 25 megabits download speed for average surface area?
So this
That's
is the
perfect.
city of Hermiston currently, all the housing, percentage of housing, and then what served at what levels. This is what we went through during our analysis.
Perfect. So what I'm able to derive from this is that as an average, even though we know there's lots of places unserved, our average internet speed, even for the locations we do serve, is currently significantly less than the national average internet speed of approximately 31 megabits per second. And those 5 megabits do make a difference when you're talking about everything that can connect to the internet today. So I just want to make sure we are aware of that. What is the potential for internet speeds with a fiber build out as presented in these options?
So the potential for internet speeds is, it's based on the chips that you purchase for the connections, but you can do 100 gigabits up and down. But this would be unlit fiber, so based,
And that's a factor of almost 1,000 more than what's presented here.
correct. We would, once the infrastructure is in, then you're not limited by speed because the entities would, I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but you control how much bandwidth can go across it. And when it's fiber in the ground or it's fiber constructed and the size of fiber that we would construct, we wouldn't be limited by speeds. It would be limited by what the provider would commit to. So the provider, the top level ISP provider would have to commit to how much data they would want you to have. But if it was the hospital, the school district, the city providing, the county, there's really not a cap on it with the technology. We would, at a minimum, we could be at that, you know. I think it's safe to say, I feel comfortable saying we would be comfortable with 10 gigabit service up and down.
Thank you. In a model where we have a infrastructure layer, is there, because I know traditionally you usually have to be within a internet service provider's available service region. So somebody who may not be able to access Charter, like you said, if they live in a different area of Hermiston, with a model where we're going out and serving all businesses and residents, is there a level of competitiveness between service providers? I don't have to be in Blue Mountain Networks region. I can also choose Charter if I want to choose Charter, et cetera.
That's a great question. So the great part about this model is charters all of a sudden now have access to every resident in Hermiston. Blue Mountain now has access to every resident in Hermiston. Any internet provider has access. And so the open market dictates the cost. You pick and choose. They offer a product at a price point and you pick and choose over multiple providers. I think the Ammon model, they started with 7 different providers and they continue to have application for additional providers to come in. So we feel comfortable that we would have at least a minimum of 7 options.
So as an end user, there would be incentive for an internet service provider to offer a competitive rate for me to sign up with through their service because I could choose someone else.
Correct.
So, Mr. Smith, I want to be mindful of the time we have tonight. There's 15 minutes left before 7. So, and we have something else on our agenda.
Yeah, and I would like the council's maybe forgiveness, maybe to give them their full time, even if we finish right now.
Okay.
They're planned about 20-25 minutes, so if
I'm not sure
you're wrapping
this
up or,
conversation is done though. So how would you like us to manage this conversation?
I mean, we could probably allow the safety discussion to go right now and then come back towards the end of the agenda, maybe finish.
Oh, you mean our regular council agenda?
Yeah,
And talk some more about
just
that?
have a, more of a discussion.
And then it's open to public comment and stuff during that time
Yeah.
period. Okay, how's the council feel about that?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah, because obviously this is a pretty important issue. I think a lot of people have a lot of interest in it and want to make sure that it's given fair time and fleshing out. So I don't want to shorten the time of this either, so. Okay, thank you, Mr. Rivera.
You
We'll
bet. Thank you.
bring
I
you
appreciate
back.
it. Mr. Mayor, Council.
Safety plan.
Yeah, Mr. Spencer, you want to introduce our
Spencer,
consultant?
Yeah, thanks for having us tonight. We have another item on the work session agenda. I want to introduce Nick Foster from Kittleson and Associates. Also, here is Joshua Lott with Anderson Perry. They're working with Kittleson on this. And we're administering a federal grant right now for a safety action plan for our transportation infrastructure. It's something that looks at basically all of the accident data, all of the incidents between pedestrians and vehicles, and tries to identify where are there hotspots, where are there actions that can be taken, how do we craft future design, how do we craft future education to make things safer. This is really kind of the first step that we're taking to create this safety action plan. It's something that most cities need to have in place in order to get future federal funding. We also have that second prong of the transportation system plan, which will be starting our consultant selection on that towards the end of this year. But for now, Nick wanted to walk us through the basic elements of a safety action plan and how we'll be approaching this project over the rest of this year.
Great. Thank you, Clint.
welcome.
Yeah, nice to be here. Yeah, so I'll go through this, try to be relatively quick here and give us some time for discussion. I'd really love to, in addition to talking with you all about what's going to go into this plan, love to hear from you all on what some of your priorities are related to transportation safety in Hermiston, some of the challenges we should be looking to address with this plan. Because ultimately the goal is to make this an actionable plan for the community that serves you all and all your constituents. So I'll go briefly over the action plan and then what we're going to be doing for engagement as a part of it. And then we'll open it up for some discussion here. So as Clint mentioned, this is a federal grant-funded plan. It's through the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. SS4A is the acronym they've come up with for that one. We are focused on reducing fatal and serious injury crashes. So that's one thing you'll see in this plan and you'll hear throughout the life of it as you follow the updates on it, is that we are not, we are focused on those highest level of severity crashes, the one where someone's life is ended or altered by the crash, and less so on the fender benders and other things like that are a little more frequent, but obviously much less severe. We're going to do this all through data analysis, community engagement, and the plan is really meant to address all users of the transportation system, from those who are walking, using mobility devices, riding bikes, driving their own cars, or moving freight through town. We're concerned with all of that. The scope of the project covers all public roads within the UGB. And so obviously focused largely on city-owned roads, since that's what the city can control. But since we are looking at the UGB, we know that county roads and especially the ODOT highways are very important too. And so we are coordinating with them. We had our technical advisory committee kickoff meeting earlier this afternoon. ODOT and the county are both participants in that. The county is going to be starting its own safety plan soon too. So there's going to be some opportunities for coordination there. Being a federally funded safety action plan, we are trying to hit all the targets that they set for making you eligible for future grant funding through the same program. Listed above up here are their general things they're looking for. The plan will address all of these items. I won't spend a lot of time going through each of them one-on-one here, but know that we are trying to follow through what's been outlaid through this grant program in order to continue to keep the city eligible for actually implementing what comes from the plan. Going back to what I talked about earlier, we are using an approach that the US DOT is applying in their own work and is encouraging others to apply. It's called the Safe System approach. It's a holistic look at transportation safety, ranging from our roads to the people using them, to the vehicles they're using, to how we care for people afterwards. And the key things to remember from it are, again, we're looking at injury prevention, not necessarily crash prevention. So we're looking at those fatal and serious injury crashes first. And again, less so about making sure we take care of all the little fender benders. We're not looking for 0 crashes, period. We're trying to really knock down those ones where someone's life has changed. We're also looking to put a little bit less emphasis on people's choices. This approach looks more at understanding that people make mistakes. You know, no person has gone through life perfect yet here, you know, in this community or more broadly. And so we're trying to build infrastructure, plan for them to make mistakes, but to reduce the probability of a mistake occurring and to reduce the severity of the outcome of a mistake. That type of approach has seen success. It's not something that the federal government here dreamed up. It's been in place for 20+ years in places around the world. And you know, this is looking at how traffic fatalities have changed in the last 20 or so years in these countries compared to the US broadly. And you can see that there are success across a range of contexts, from countries that are very rural to countries that are very urban. They've all seen significant reductions in taking this type of approach towards their transportation safety. So for our project schedule, we've kicked things off here. We're deep into data collection and analysis right now, going through all the crash data, the roadway data provided by the city, land use data. We'll be starting our first round of public outreach here in just a couple of weeks. Talk about that more in a couple slides. We'll then take what we get from the data, what we hear from our advisory committee, the public, you all, and we'll spend our summer developing draft strategies to address the different issues identified. We'll be back with our advisory committee and to the public in the fall to review those strategies, which will then button up with their feedback and come back to you all. We're targeting early next year, maybe January, starting to the adoption process with you all. So community engagement is a big piece of this plan. What we're trying to accomplish with it is to give people a range of opportunities to connect with us. That will be in person and virtual, with our in-person activities focused on meeting people where they're already at, not having them come to us, but trying to be out in the community and connecting with them. And then the virtual opportunities are meant just to give people a chance on their own time to connect with us. There's 2 purposes to the outreach. One is this first phase, we'll be looking on gathering input on, you know, what are the existing concerns the community has? What are their priorities for safety? Where do they see challenges? And then in phase 2, we'll be bringing our ideas back to them. Here's what we think should be done. Here's what we think should be priorities in Hermiston, and then getting their feedback on that. Our first round of outreach, just had the slide up here to show there's a number of things going into it. I think the key things to take away are we will be, again, virtual. We'll have both English and Spanish language sites. We will also be in person here. Coming up on Mother's Day weekend, we'll be at the Spring Bazaar, Skate Fest, planning to go out to the food cart pod, and potentially a couple other locations too. Again, there'll be a couple of us just going around in the community to different spots, intercepting people, again, where they already are, trying to connect with a range of folks. We're also very interested in groups we should be reaching out to. So if you have thoughts on that, you know, either share tonight or email Mr. Spencer and let us know, and we'll try to add them to our list. We'll probably have a little free time still on Friday, the 10th of May, to get out to another group or 2. So with that now, I'd like to open it up for some discussion questions from you all. I guess a couple things just to preload this. One is, you know, with this plan, we are looking at, you know, a long-term vision of maybe 0 fatal or serious injuries. Again, that's a long-term vision. So the question we're asking of people is, you know, what's your reaction to that? Within that, from the grant funding source, you don't have to set an exact target for when you want to hit 0 fatal or serious injuries. You know, the target is not, you have to do that in 5 years, otherwise you're failing. They're giving communities the option to either set a target for when you'll reach that 0 goal, or to set an interim reduction of a significant reduction, say 50% in 20 years or something like that. You know, what we heard from our advisory committee earlier today was there's probably more of an appetite for that latter approach, recognizing that it'll be a long haul towards zero, not that that's not worth trying for, but recognizing that there's a human element to it. There's a technology element that we can't control as a city. So we don't necessarily want to set ourselves up for a goal we can't achieve in 5-10 years, but having benchmarks to hit along the way as we reassess that long-term vision might be a good approach. And then just here's some other thoughts. We'd love your feedback or thoughts on just what are those high-level safety concerns you have, things you'd want to see this plan address, concerns you have, questions you have. And so with that, yeah, I'd love to open it up for some discussion and thoughts from you all.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
So this is just a study, right?
Yeah, it's an action plan, yes.
And so at the end, you'll come up with some action items that hopefully will help us to achieve safer streets for all. Does that come with any additional resources attached to that?
Yeah,
plan?
great question. Came up earlier in our other meeting too. So yes, the outcomes of this will be projects like infrastructure projects, like you're just saying, safer crosswalks, things like that, as well as policies or education related items, you know, things for your emergency services partners, stuff like that. No additional funding is guaranteed beyond the production of this plan. However, by starting on this plan and then finishing it, you become eligible for other grant funding, both federal, as well as making you more competitive, maybe for some state or other grant funding.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you. First of all, this is something that I'm particularly passionate about, is increasing safer streets in our city. So thank you for being here and presenting this. I also want to, I'm very interested in the information that goes around that number 2 part of the goal, where you just get part of the way there. There's something in the electronics performance world that I kind of follow, where they say it's really easy to get about 80% of what you want, and that's most of what you want, and you'll be satisfied. It's that 20% that's really hard to squeak out, where you really get exorbitant costs and you have to go and godlike prices and tier parts and things like that. So I appreciate that that's something that we're considering. So I'm really interested in seeing that part of it, because I think that'll be more digestible for a lot of people here. Thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Others? Yeah, Councilor Lynn.
My question is, I noticed that the countries that you were comparing were small countries compared to the United States. Did you compare any larger countries, and was it implemented there and then there was a lot of success? Because I think yours was for the United States was only like 5.6.
Oh, sorry, got ahead of myself there.
Yeah, 5.6 that it went down. So I'm just wondering if you did a comparison, if this was implemented in a country close to our size.
Yeah, great question. So first off, as the note there shows, I stole this graphic from the Federal Highway Administration. I won't claim credit for creating it or doing all the original research that went into it. I will say that generally, when you look at the United States compared to other developed countries, even ones that maybe haven't adopted quite as an aggressive an approach as what's shown here, the US still generally lags. Most developed countries are a little more aggressive with their approach to transportation safety than the US has historically been. We're seeing a shift here. But yeah, this, you know, if you look at maybe some other countries, the numbers might be smaller than Norway, France, Sweden, and Netherlands there, but they would still generally be a greater reduction than that 5.6%. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question.
Any other questions? Yeah, Councilor Peterson.
So are you going to be sending someone out to making micro presentations, if you will, to like some of the senior facilities and that sort of thing, to ask them what specifically they are interested in? Because, you know, we have some micro groups that we might not see out and about as much, and that's partly because, you know, they can't get out and about as much, and that's what we're trying to work on.
Okay.
So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We've had some success with other plans and other communities doing some activities like that. We have a list of groups we want to try to engage with. If there are groups you're particularly concerned about, you want to make sure we're reaching out to, like I said, we'd love to hear those, so we can see what we can do. A couple of us are coming out for a couple of days, around that May 10th, 11th time period. And like I said, we are going to the Spring Bazaar Skate Fest, and that planning to have a person at the food cart pod too. But there is some time in there for some other groups on that Friday. And so if there are groups we can be reaching out to, you think we should be prioritizing, we'd love to hear that.
Senior luncheon on those days.
They usually don't have lunch on Friday,
Uh,
but there may be some people there. We could talk with them to see if they would put the notice out and see if people would come.
Counselor Drawn?
Have you considered also reaching out with the school district? As I know that some parents sometimes often call us because they're concerned that some streets don't have a sidewalk for the kids to walk on, and yet, you know, they still have to walk to school. And that's one of their main concerns.
Yeah, great question. So yes, the school district is on our groups that we are reaching out to, and the superintendent was at our meeting earlier today, so they are directly engaged.
Other questions? So the expected outcomes timeline,
Around January.
January of next year?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Nothing else? Mr.
If I could just, I did want to acknowledge that the Planning Commission also chose to attend tonight. So they are in the audience and just to contribute and support the project.
Perfect. Thank you, Planning Commission, for being here this evening. I was wondering why there were some strange faces in here. Really strange faces. Well, thank you for attending. And Nick, thanks for your presentation. Sorry we gave you such a short window to present it in. You did a great job.
Oh, great, thank you. I understand that earlier topic it's very
Well,
important.
this one's
and-
highly important too. We want to
Sure.
make sure that our streets and sidewalks and public access places are safe. So highly important as well. So thank you, and we look forward more to working with you on this.
Great, thank you for your time.
Have a good evening. All right. Everybody good? We ready to move into the other meeting, or do you need a quick break? Everybody good? Okay. So we are going to adjourn the work session and call the regular meeting to order with a declaration of a quorum. All members are present. Please join me in the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We almost got that back on time. Good job, council. So, Mr. Smith, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
Just what we talked about earlier, the potential for adding back some additional discussion on the broadband topic, and I would suggest we do that kind of after all the action items, maybe right before committee reports or something like that.
Right before committee reports?
Yeah.
So right after 11A,
Correct.
after the financial report? Everybody good with that? Okay, sounds good. Bunch of proclamations tonight. So I think it's important that we read them all. So I'm going to go through and read all the proclamations. Excuse me. Whereas Vietnamese refugees have proudly resided in the United States since the conclusion of the Vietnam War on April 30th, 1975. And whereas the Vietnamese Americans have put forth their full energy building communities where they live into multitude of prominent areas rich in industry, economy, culture, education, and military service. And whereas Vietnamese Americans acknowledge the United States, the state of Oregon, and the city of Hermiston as being their second heart, mind, and family homeland. And whereas every year Vietnamese Americans observe Remembrance Day on April 30th to solemnly honor the 58,000 American soldiers, including 710 soldiers from the state of Oregon, and more than 300,000 South Vietnamese soldiers who sacrificed their lives in the line of duty for freedom and democracy in South Vietnam from 1955 to 1975. Now therefore, I, Dr. Dave Drotzman, Mayor of Hermiston, Oregon, do hereby recognize April 30th as Vietnamese American Remembrance Day and encourage all to join in the reverent recognition of this cultural heritage celebration. Signed this day, April 22nd, 2024 by me. Proclamation, National Day of Prayer. Whereas throughout history, America has faced trials and triumphs where they have responded in prayer, seeking courage, comfort, inspiration, and joy-filled celebration. Faith compels us to seek and cling to the light in times of darkness and spread light to those in need. Whereas from the first gatherings of our founding fathers, elected officials have prayed and encouraged those they serve and represent to join them in prayer, including the authors of Declaration of Independence, as they wrote, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world and carried on to the present day in presidential proclamations such as last year's invitation to join him and asking for God's continued guidance, mercy, and protection. And whereas a National Day of Prayer has not only been a part of our heritage since it was declared by the First Continental Congress in 1775, but it is a public law established in the United States Congress in 1952, approved by a joint resolution and amended by Congress and President Reagan with Public Law 100-307 in 1988, affirming that it is essential for us as a nation to pray and direct the President of the United States to set aside and proclaim the first Thursday of May annually as the National Day of Prayer. And whereas in every state across America, the observance of the National Day of Prayer will be held on Thursday, May 2nd, 2024, with the theme, Lift Up the Word, Light Up the World, based on the verses found in 2 Samuel 22:29-31. For you are my lamp, O Lord, and my God lightens my darkness. This God, his way is perfect. The word and the Lord prove true. He is shield for all those who take refuge in him. And whereas unified prayer among neighbors, coming together to express our faith and exercise our freedom in prayer by joining our hearts and voices in reading scriptures and attending services to humbly seek God in praise, repentance, and love for our neighbor and nation, holding fast to the promises throughout the Holy Scripture that the Lord hears and avails much as he answers the faith-filled prayers of his people in the city and country where we live, learn, work, worship, serve, and desire all to thrive in. Now therefore, I, Dr. Dave Drotzman, Mayor of Hermiston, Oregon, do hereby proclaim May 2nd, 2024 as National Day of Prayer, signed this 22nd day of April 2024 by me. Fred Ziari Day Proclamation. Whereas IRZ Consulting has become a global leader in irrigation engineering, water management, and energy conservation, and whereas Fred and IRZ have developed algorithm and irrigation designs that have saved regional growers millions of dollars and billions of gallons of water per year. And whereas IRZ documents water conservation of over 10 billion gallons and 35 megawatt hours of energy each year. And whereas IRZ projects now reach into over 30 different countries. And whereas Fred founded the nonprofit Farmers Ending Hunger, which has distributed more than 35 million pounds of food products through Oregon and Washington food banks. And whereas Fred was inducted into the Oregon State University's Agricultural Hall of Fame in 2002 for his tremendous impact on the agricultural industry. And whereas all these irrigation innovations have contributed to the strength and stability of the greater Hermiston economy, and whereas IRZ Consulting was founded in Hermiston by Fred Ziari with his great vision and creativity 40 years ago this month. Now therefore, I, Dr. Dave Drotzman, Mayor of Hermiston, Oregon, do hereby proclaim May 7th, 2024 as Fred Ziari Day in the city of Hermiston as a recognition of Fred Ziari and IRZ Consulting's tremendous positive impact on Hermiston and the surrounding region. Signed this 22nd day of April, 2024 by me. And last one, Drinking Water Week Proclamation. Whereas water is our most valuable natural resource, and whereas drinking water serves as a vital role in daily life, serving an essential purpose to health, hydration, and hygiene, needs for the quality of life that our citizens enjoy. And whereas tap water delivers public health protection, fire protection, support for our economy, and the quality of life we enjoy. And whereas the hard work performed by the entire water sector, designing capital projects, operators ensuring the safety and quality of drinking water, or a member of a pipe crew, maintaining infrastructure communities rely on to transport high-quality drinking water from its source to consumers' taps. And whereas we are all stewards of the water infrastructure upon which current and future generations depend, and whereas the citizens of our city are called upon to help protect our sources of water from pollution, practice water conservation, and get involved with their water by familiarizing themselves with it. Now therefore, I, Dr. Dave Drotzman, Mayor of Hermiston, Oregon, do hereby proclaim May 5th through 11th, 2024 as Drinking Water Week. Signed this 22nd day of April, 2024. Lots of good things going on. Lots of exciting things to proclaim. So congratulations to all of those entities.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
We'd like to, we have some extra employees in the audience that don't usually come.
Okay.
Mark,
Why
would
are
you
those
like-
extra employees here tonight, Mr.
They are
Porter?
here for Drinking Water Week.
Right on.
So, yeah, so you did a great job reading the proclamation on Drinking Water Week. I just wanted to add a little bit more additional detail and recognize some of the water department employees who've been able to make it this evening. So specific to the city of Hermiston's water department, it always amazes me when you really look at the numbers in terms of what this staff really does on a daily basis. So the City of Hermiston's Water Department staff performs a critical function in protecting public health and the environment while providing a bedrock service which supports all aspects of our growing local and regional economy. For such an important service, we're proud of the fact that because of the hard work of our staff, most people never have to think twice about this system. Our staff maintains two major systems which collectively produce approximately 2 billion gallons of water per year. The systems utilize extensive pumping infrastructure to pull water from 4 main groundwater wells and a Columbia River intake station. The river water is additionally treated through a complex water treatment facility to bring it to the highest drinking water standards, while well water is meticulously monitored to meet our stringent water quality standards. Non-potable water from the regional water system is a critical function to serve to several significant industries in the region, which use it to provide over 1,000 megawatts of electricity generation capacity, irrigate several thousand acres of high-value farmland, and provide the backbone computing capacity that the modern internet relies on. Collectively, the users of water supplied by our staff through the regional water system represent over $2 billion of assessed property value, or roughly 1/3 of all taxable value in Umatilla County. Potable drinking water from the regional water system and city wells provides an essential need for more than 20,000 residents and businesses in our community. This clean and healthy water supply is used 24 hours a day, 365 days a year in our homes, schools, businesses, medical facilities, and emergency responders. It's delivered immediately, on demand, without a second thought by users through a complex system of more than 90 miles of piping with thousands of valves to ensure it gets where it needs to go. This operation is only accomplished through the hard work of our staff, whether it's 118 degrees or minus 18 degrees. Therefore, in anticipation of the American Water Works Association's Drinking Water Week, we want to recognize and thank, and I'll read them all off in alphabetical order if they want to stand as we read them off. We've got Chad Atkins, Sean Bassford, Roy Bicknell, Fernando Cervantes, Scott Dameyer, David Estrada, Jorge Gonzalez, Jason Lohman, and Alex McCann. So let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, the Water Department. There's probably no service that we provide to our residents more important than safe drinking water. And we know you take that seriously every single day. Put your hearts and soul into making sure that the product you're delivering is reliable and safe, and it's appreciated. So thank you for all your hard work and time and effort into that success. So thank you. All right. We are now at our opportunity for citizen input on non-agenda items. And so if there are people here this evening that would like to speak to the city council about items that aren't on our agenda, we will get to the agenda items. You will also be able to speak to those. But if there are items that you would like to speak to that aren't on the agenda, please come up to the microphone up front, introduce yourself by name, address, and direct your comments to me and try and limit them to less than 5 minutes. Welcome.
Hi, Timothy Thomason. You said address?
Yes, please.
778 West Pheasant Avenue here in Hermiston.
Thank you.
I come to you today because I wanted to talk about an event that we are trying to put on here in Hermiston. I wrote something, so I'll go ahead and read that off so it's a little more structured.
Go ahead.
I started a nonprofit called Equality Without Exception because I wanted to make a difference here in Hermiston. What does equality without exception mean? To us in the corporation, it is what we stand on for our entire corporation. All are to be accepted no matter who they are. This is not just for the LGBT community. This is for everyone. I knew I needed to get our name out to the community, so I thought what better way than a pride event. I realize that word has had some negative publicity and is not greatly accepted in our community. I understand that. But that is not what our pride is set to be. I'm proud to be a gay man. I'm also proud to be a Christian. I am proud to be a part of this community, and I'm proud of so many things in my life. So are so many of our community members. We want everyone to express their pride in their heritage and who they are and what makes them them. This event will not be one of half-naked people parading sexuality down our streets, as some people might expect it to be. It will not be asking anyone to change their beliefs. It will not condemn those who do not agree with our beliefs. Instead, it will be our community coming together, showing no matter the differences, we can all live amongst each other in harmony. So please, we ask that everyone show your pride on June 1st, whether that pride is being gay, straight, bisexual, trans, man, woman, indigenous, Latino, Black, white, a veteran, a mother, a father. All pride is accepted, for all have pride to show. We can all be proud of who we are. Be yourself, change the world is our motto. Our event will occur on June 1st at the Eastern Oregon Trade and Event Center from 10 to 5. A parade will follow, permit pending. Appropriate for all ages, respectful of all persons.
Thank you, Timothy. You said the event is 10 to 5 at EO Tech. When is the parade?
It will follow immediately after.
So it'll be an evening parade?
Yes.
Okay, and it'll be here in town or?
It's depending on permit. I know there's some staffing issues that I still got to work out with Chief of Police.
Okay.
But if not, we do have a backup plan of working that out at EO Tech.
Okay, and what was your slogan? You read something.
Be yourself, change the world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Others? Welcome.
Mi nombre es María,
Okay, I need to know your name and address.
2046.
2046 Northeast Church Street.
Okay, can you come up to the microphone so we can all hear you? Yeah. Maria, what was your last name?
Villagrana.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Mi pregunta,
So we would like to collaborate here in the city of Hermiston. We would like to get the opportunity to set up and help our small businesses. We ask for the opportunity for you guys to help us expand multiple small businesses and give us the opportunity to be set it here.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you pull that microphone closer? There you go. Expand multiple businesses, and then you said something else.
Yeah, we would like the opportunity and see if you guys are able to help us to set our stand here in the city of Hermiston.
Okay. So you're asking about access or a stand in the city of Hermiston.
Yeah.
Have you talked to the city? Have you been to the city?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And so what kind of stand is this? Is this a fruit stand?
He has a food truck.
Okay, food truck? Like a drive around food truck, or you're talking about the stands that I'm seeing on the corners that are doing the fruit cups?
She has an actual food truck and
A food truck, okay. Well, I think we have a process in place for you to do that. So I think you have to apply through the
I
city.
think some of the discussion we've had in the past is that maybe the requirements we have are too restrictive for adding additional food trucks. And that's some of the concerns that they have.
Okay,
But how about, we would be happy to sit down and
Yep.
meet with them again and talk through, and maybe we can bring back
Yeah.
any possible suggestions
That sounds
as
great.
far as changes.
thank you for coming
Thank
tonight.
you.
Yeah, yes,
Muchas gracias por viniendo.
Okay. Others? All right. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. Any items we need to pull between from 8A to 8H?
Yes, I'd like to pull item G.
Okay, Counselor Primer has asked that we pull item G. Any others? Okay. Any public comment on consent agenda items A through H excluding G? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve consent agenda items A through H?
So moved.
Second.
Excluding G? Was it, yeah. So Counselor McCarthy and seconded was Counselor Drawn? Okay. Been motion by Counselor McCarthy, seconded by Counselor Drawn, that we approve consent agenda items A through H excluding G as presented. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. G, Counselor Primer.
Yeah, this is a request basically to reschedule the second city council meeting in May due to Memorial Day. And it just, because it is an actual rescheduling of a date or cancellation, I think it's prudent for us to at least discuss the matter before we just approve it.
Okay. So this one, Mr. Smith, is because Memorial Day falls on the 27th, which is Monday? Is that right? Okay. So your recommendation is we move it to Tuesday?
Yeah, that's been the common practice in the past, and we typically haven't put it on the agenda necessarily for approval. I thought that might be prudent, but that's why it's on the agenda.
Okay. How does council feel about that date? Tuesday?
I'm fine
Obviously-
with staff recommendation.
What's that?
I'm fine with the staff recommendation, moving it to Tuesday.
Okay. Anybody else have issue with that?
Fine.
Okay. Okay. Any public comment on us rescheduling the Monday, May 27th meeting to Tuesday, May 28th? Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Then move that we adopt the recommended reschedule from Monday, May 27th to Tuesday, May 28th. That was moved by Counselor Myers, seconded by Counselor Harden. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And I lost my place. All right, now we're on to resolution number 2319, First Amendment to IGA for IT services with Morrow County. Ms. Smith?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, one of the things that we've committed to with each of our clients of our IT department is that we take a look at their annual kind of usage of the department, because we basically have set it up as a kind of a retainer. They pay a certain amount and we try to do all the work that they need. We kind of monitor that as we go, and then kind of keep track of where their hours are based on in comparison to what they contracted with us for. So Morrow County has been quite busy lately, with, I would say, 6 to 9 months lately. And so we have discussed with them that they're going to need some more hours from our department, because we've been putting those kind of hours in. And so they've agreed, and the Morrow County Commission has already approved the agreement that's before you to increase their hours to 52 hours a week. It was previously at 40. And then a new monthly payment of $27,040. And this would also then add in a increase based on the Western Region CPI, with a kind of a window between 2% and 5%, so that we felt that was kind of fair for both of us, so we didn't see large spikes or drops in the CPI. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Yes, Counselor Peterson.
So this is a question that we tend to ask more and more all the time, is it's like, at what point are our IT people able to keep up with the workload? How are we doing?
Yeah, so I would say we're doing pretty well. We added one position in this current budget year that we're in. And that's helped us to be able to provide the services that we're asking now Morrow County to pay a little bit more for. So we're comfortable at that level of service and are able to keep up with our other contracts comfortably at this point. In our upcoming budget discussions, the IT department is going to be requesting to add another position. We've had a number of possible contracts, and we'll have more discussions about those in detail as we look at the budget. But I think we're hitting it pretty good right now. But always, you know, Mr. Stanley's always doing a good job of making sure his staff is able to meet the needs and not be overtaxed as well.
Do our contracts have rolling COLAs or something in there?
Well, that's what we're adding them in. We did not have those in the initial where we got a kind of a CPI adjustment every year. We're adding those in as we renew the contracts with our clients.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Councilor Linton?
How many staff does the IT have at this time?
We have 7.
7. And if you hire one more person, the income that's coming in from the work that they're doing will still cover that? It won't have
Well-
to add any more out of our budget?
Well, that's the, that would be the discussion we'll have, is that we would ask for a new position next year, but we wouldn't add it until we've added additional hours or contracts that would cover the cost of that position.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions, Council? Okay. Any public comment, resolution number 2320? Can I get a motion for approval of 2319, First Amendment to the IGA for IT services with Morrow County?
So moved.
Second.
And moved by Councilor Primer, seconded by Councilor McCarthy, right? That we approve resolution 2319, First Amendment to IGA for IT services with Morrow County. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Now, resolution number 2320, approval of guaranteed minimum pricing or maximum pricing amendments on civic projects. Mr. Smith?
Yes, so Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we went through these are what we're calling the civic building projects. So the update to the Harkenrider Center, the build out of the additional space in City Hall, and the library. We're not talking about the library tonight necessarily, but we've kind of wrapped those into one. And then one we added as we were going through the project is the ARC building. And so in June of last year, the council approved using that alternative method, and we hired Hacker Architects. And then about a month later, we approved the hiring of CB Construction as the contractor partner in that process. And with all of these projects being renovations or restorations, those kind of projects, this method is very conducive to that kind of a project, because you never know what you're going to get when you cut open a floor or open a wall, those kinds of things. And so having a contractor at the table with the architect to talk about how you might demolish a certain piece of a project or things like that has been very valuable. And so with this other process, the pricing process is also different. So rather than laying out the specs and then going out to bid and a contractor says, this is what it will cost me to do it, because of the unique nature of renovations, what they do is the architect goes through, puts together tentative plans, and at certain points within the process, they give us a price to say, okay, this is what we think it's going to cost. This is what we think it's going to cost. And as the plans get more detailed, we get into a more specific price. And now for these 3 buildings that we have before you tonight, that price is really what we're asking for, kind of the final contract price that we would say. So I'm going to talk just a little bit, remind everybody a little bit with what the projects are. kind of walk through this on these three. So again, also a reminder of how are we paying for these, and why wouldn't we use these monies to help in operations of these departments. These are enterprise zone funds that are one-time recipient type funds going to a one-time project of a renovation or construction, and not necessarily conducive to put into operating costs with ongoing programs. So this is a picture of the Harkenrider basement. What we're proposing here is, and the top of is the north side of the building. The windows, or the doors and windows that go out onto into the backyard, or the back patio area. And then on the bottom side will be storage as well as bathrooms. And then on the far right, kind of in front of the elevator, you see there's kind of a food service area, sink, and some other things. And that's kind of the design that we're working off of. Here's a rendering of what that might look like. So the project is 3,800 square feet. The design is really the same as you saw it in January, essentially. And in this process, they call it a guaranteed maximum price. So a GMP. So this is what as the architects have developed a scope of work, this is what the contractor says it's going to cost. And if you see fit to adopt it, then that's what they're obligated to do it for, unless there's a change in the scope of work. So now here is the IT space down in the basement, basically directly underneath us. Along the top, you got a kind of a flex office and some storage space. Offices along the bottom right-hand corner, with some cubicle space out in the middle. And then on the far left wall, a counter for doing work on the various pieces of equipment. And again, this is essentially the same design that you saw in January. It's about 1,500 square feet. The GMP on this is 365,142. Then the third, we don't have pretty pictures for this one. It was added a little bit later, and so we haven't done as much architectural. And I updated this and didn't get the update of this presentation to Lily in time. So the bottom two items are not included in this price. So this is phase one. It's going to replace the roof, and it's going to update and add electrical inside. And when I say electrical to a contractor, that also includes data. So adding capacity for more internet ports, those types of things, and network system. And then we would be coming back to you with further GMPs that would include the foundation repair, the front entry ramp, and then at the end of the process, and then some siding and window work, painting, things like that, after the police department is able to go back into the public safety center. So this amount is 137,331. Be happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Smith, on the fiscal information that you put in here, next to the ARC building, you put with an allowance $30,000. Why does that one have that tag
Right.
and none of the other ones have it?
Yeah, so because there was still unknowns as far as the status of that roof, it's quite an old roof on the ARC building. That 30,000 is an allowance that if there's extra sheeting that they can't see right now that might need to be replaced, it would give them up to that to replace sheeting as they go in and replace the roof. They don't anticipate it, but this is so we wouldn't have to do a small amendment for, 5,000 or whatever if they did find a few pieces that were rotted through or something like that.
Okay. I mean, it's like 25% of the budget, right? So It's a pretty significant allowance.
It is.
Counselor McCarthy?
Regarding that exception, that 30,000 could that only be approved for sheeting, or could
Yes.
they allow it for some other reason if they wanted to?
No.
Not even for the roof?
No, I think.
Well, if there was some other thing that went wrong with the roof, you know, if they found a truss that was broken or something, then that could be part of that, but that would be it.
Any other questions, Counselor? Councilman?
With the the Harkenrider building, I know there was problem with water leaking around the window in the basement. Has that been fixed already, or is this going to be repaired when this work is done?
That will be part of this work. They're working on kind of the drainage upstream essentially of all of that so that the water doesn't puddle there. So it drains better before it gets to that point. But yes, that will be addressed in this work.
Okay. And, one other question. You were saying with the art center that it may cost more because you didn't get the information into Lily in time? You know?
No, not may cost more. It was just, I had put more into my into the
Oh.
presentation. A couple other points that aren't there.
Oh,
but
okay.
I
Thank you.
addressed them verbally.
Okay, thank you.
So we won't be approving those other 2 points tonight. That's not part of this approval.
Correct. The other two,
There was 2
The
line
ramp,
items, the ramp and the,
right. Those would be approved at a future
at a
meeting.
future date.
When we have an actual amount. I don't know those totals yet.
Okay. Perfect. Any other questions from the council? Any public comment? We're losing all the public. All right, can I get a motion to approve the resolution 2320 as presented?
So moved. Second.
Been moved by Counselor McCarthy, seconded by Counselor Barone, that we approve resolution 2320 as presented. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. On to March 2024 financial report, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we'll start with the HURA. This month, our property tax revenue collection in HURA has gone above the projections. We're at 102%. And then a quick update on the current HURA capital project, Second Street Gateway. It's about 50% complete. Curb, gutter, sidewalk, and the ramps have been poured. And we expect paving to be installed by the end of the month. And so it's moving quickly. We think they're going to hit the 90 days pretty safely. So
I think they did the asphalt today.
did they?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. General fund. Right now, monthly revenues are slightly below projections by about 50,000. But annually still slightly ahead of where we're projecting, about 4%. So that's it's a good sign. Expenses were below by 25%. And this really includes a couple more movements of those dollars from operational accounts to the capital accounts related to the building projects we just discussed. And then our annual expenses are below projections by about 10%. And if you look at that page, that one should be, there's a number that's red, it should be black. I believe that's page 4, the bottom there. The 10%'s red, which would usually indicate a bad thing, but it's a good thing. So then on the utility and street funds page, everything is really moving in a good, or is in a good spot on that front. I just wanted to correct a couple on the street fund. The expenditure percentage should be black instead of red, because again, the expenses are below, our actuals are below our projected, so it should be a positive number or a black number. And then the negative 2% in the regional water fund that's black should be red. The variance shows up in the proper color, but again, that regional water fund with our resources, we're just a little bit behind on revenues because as we project them out, because we don't have the potable water sales that we had been having in the past. So we're not matching what the history was in that area of the budget. Then some more, just to report on a few of the other capital projects in the city. Lead and copper testing, it's 100% complete with no lead present. So that's a good sign. The Gladys, Maine, Newport water line projects that you recently approved the contract on, it should start early summer. And the Teen Adventure Park is open to public use. If you haven't, there's been a lot of people over there. I think it's been a success already. May 11th is going to be the ribbon cutting. That's, you said 1 o'clock, Brandon? So 1 o'clock on May 11th. We'll make sure and get that on your calendars. And then the hangar replacement up at the airport. The old hangar has been removed, and then the contractor will be coming in and getting started to construct the new hangar up there. And with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Hey, Mr. Smith, on page 5, the Public Safety Center
Yes.
dollars, can you explain that?
Yeah,
just-
so
right.
that's one of the ones I was mentioning before where we had been coding some of the expenses to the operational accounts, but when we set up the capital accounts, so we moved them out, so it looks like we had negative expenditures, but that it wasn't really, it's just an accounting move of the funds.
So instead of
That
having
negative 45,000 is just showing that we moved those out of the operational
to the
fund.
positive $45,000.
Well, it's
Break even.
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, it's compared, we could have spent
Right.
1,000 in there to a positive, but this is the net of what happened.
Yeah. So a favorable number. of
Right. It's a
79,000.
positive number. Yeah.
So that's why it looks funny at 232%.
Right. It looks weird.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about the monthly financial report? No? Any public comment? Okay. Can I get a motion to adopt the March financial report as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Then moved by Counselor Myers, second by Counselor McCarthy, that we approve the March financial report as presented. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Back to Nate. And the Q&A about internet service. So if you're just now joining us, the council had a work session this evening where we talked about internet and broadband effort that we are going through. And we had so many questions, we had to forego all of the Q&A. And so the council decided to bring it back till now. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. So it gave me a good time to think about what I was actually wanting from council and asking. So maybe I can be a little more clear to start, and that may help you in the discussion. So I think what I'm asking for is one of two directions. The first direction to consider is for staff to finalize our work and prepare a recommendation for direction on city-owned infrastructure. Option 2 is to continue conversations on digital infrastructure that would consider a regional solution prior to making a final recommendation for direction to council. So I'm not asking for you guys to, I'm not asking for council to decide tonight. I'm asking direction if we finalize our work and bring back a recommendation for you to consider, or if you would like me to continue conversations that would consider a regional approach prior to coming back with a recommendation for staff.
Okay. Counselor McCarthy.
So just a couple questions in regards to the difference between an option where the city owns all of the infrastructure versus a regional. Would that still be a similar model? We're just not the only ones doing it? If it's the regional approach?
Correct. The city of Hermiston would be the only owner and manager of it. So we would have full control, but it would only extend to the boundaries of the city.
But then the regional, I think he was asking, then the regional would be maybe a conglomeration of the cities and the county with some entity together owning it, but for the whole region. Same model, just a different total owner. Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of like we do with the Path Project. Some sort of similar collaboration like that. Okay. Counselor Bremer has been patient, so I will get to everybody.
Okay, so, if I'm understanding this correctly, options, you have options 1, 2, and 3. Options 1 and 3, we as a city are the owners of the system. We put in the system and everything is ours. It's just option 3 is a wider area. But that's, and going with option 3 requires additional looking into and further study. Am I understanding this correctly?
You are understanding the concepts correctly. What staff is asking you tonight isn't to give us direction. It's, do we finalize the recommendation to bring back? Or do we continue to look at a regional as a recommendation to bring back?
Okay, my main thought on that one was, is that, who's gonna plug the wire into my house is whether it's gonna be, options 1 and 3, city of Hermiston is plugging that wire. Option 2 is an external entity who is yet to be determined, so to speak.
Yes.
Okay, and then another question that I had in regards to this is, currently there's multiple providers in the city. What would be the status of, like, say, your Comcast or your
Could be Comcast.
Comcast, your current internet providers, your current providers, what would be the status of their infrastructure?
So their infrastructure that's already in place would remain. They would continue to have an opportunity to expand their system through their franchise agreement. So they would be able to build out their own private system the same way they do now. Option 1 and 3 would give them the opportunity also to sign up as the open access model. So they would continue to operate as normal or to provide a service through the open access model.
Okay. And maybe, since the last question, did we have on the options, option 1, did we have a kind of an idea of how many employees that would add to the city-ish?
We do have how it would be modeled in our final recommendation. We would walk you through all the financials, the structure, the work plan, all those things. But yeah, we do have there's an initial part, a build out part, and then a maintenance and operation part that would all be a different answer.
Okay,
But it would require staffing, new staffing.
all right, thank you.
Counselor Peterson?
So a couple of things, I know, pardon my frog in my throat here. A couple of things come to mind, and one is I think about how much we've been able to do when working with the other cities. I think about the stepping stones and what we were able to do by, putting our efforts together, and also thinking about how Hermiston is constantly growing. And so that if we stay within, like, say, okay, just city boundaries, our boundaries get bigger all the time. And so if we, kind of encapsulate our thoughts just within, if we think small now, when we know that we're getting bigger, my concern is that it's going to, make it difficult to grow, and we're gonna have more growing pains later on than we might otherwise. And I think having the conversations with the area would be, we would be better served. I've been made recently aware of something called, and I'm embarrassed to admit I didn't know about it before, which is, agritourism, and that's a big thing in this area. And I've just recently become aware of it. It's like, all right, well, if we have people doing agritourism and then coming and staying locally, then I really want the people that are going out and doing those things to have access. And it kind of behooves us as a region to invest in our region. And I would really like to know what that looks like, because, this is Eastern Oregon we're talking about. And, yes, Hermiston's very much a leader, but it would be really nice to lead grandiosely, because this is the first step into what's very much like laying the railroad.
Great comments. Thank you, Counselor. And the thoughts around that would work similar to a line extension policy, or as we extend service, we would just have another layer as we extend water, road, sewer, electric. Digital infrastructure would be incorporated in a concept like that. So growth is already intended and in mind of managing and operating.
Counselor Brown?
I just kind of wanted to reiterate some of the comments again from the first time that you presented. I believe it has a really big educational value, especially if we're looking to foster growth in our community. We talk about a lot of different growth, and to provide kids an education early on will give them a lot of opportunities to do a lot of things that maybe they couldn't and before. And I believe internet provides that. Regionally, again, I think there's a lot of kids, a lot of families outside of our urban growth boundary that this would capture. There's a lot of people that come into our town regularly that this would help. So I am fine with going down the path of, let's see what we can do. Let's work with our partners, like Councilor Peterson was saying, and let's see what opportunities could arise. So that's where I'm at.
Counselor McCarthy?
A couple of questions. One, I just want to double check. So we talked about kind of an option, kind of a middle option, second option, where we basically don't do anything, which is how it is right now. There's nothing preventing a private company from installing their own fiber network and saying, hey, we serve fiber at your house. Do you want it? Is there anything preventing them if we adopted a digital infrastructure where the city or even the region owned digital infrastructure that would prevent a private company from, well, that's nice that the city of Hermiston you're doing, but we want our own top of the line because that's how we want to pitch it, fiber network. Is there anything preventing a private entity from installing their own fiber network if they desired?
No, it would be similar as it is today, whether we're involved in it or not. There's still the ability for a private company to come in, make those investments, connect whatever model, however many houses at whatever speeds, and offer that as an opportunity for the consumers of the city. So this wouldn't get in the way of that. However, we see if we go down this path as assistance to them, because they have less money to invest in infrastructure and they're offering just the ones and zeros versus their investment. So they get a higher rate of return with a less investment in our community and access to more people.
Thank you. Follow up to that, if the direction that the council gives is to pursue a regional option, as we go farther down the line in that discussion, is there anything that would prevent us from, and we discover potentially this is not something that's going to work as far as the city of Hermiston's interests are concerned, is there anything to prevent us from going back to your first option where the city of Hermiston just takes care of city of Hermiston?
There's no, so I think if I understood your question correct, we're at the point where we can finalize our work and bring a staff recommendation. We would come together and bring a recommendation to you. That would be either recommending the city invest in this or the city do nothing. The second option is, and I want to be real clear, these conversations are one meeting. We have no commitments, no direction, there's no unified voice. We presented the concept and they're like, oh, I'm curious, let's learn more. And before we participated in that conversation, I wanted to be clear that council knew what I was doing, what staff was doing and participating in that. And so that's what I'm here tonight, is before I start having any conversations in a region, I want to make sure you're comfortable with me having those conversations.
Thank you. Yep. Councilor Linton?
I'm looking at this and I'm looking at 4.2 million for the regional build. We have just had increases with water, electric and all these things, borrowing money. And because we don't have the money, so I don't see us going into another 4.2 million to build out what's needed to do this. As far as the city owning it, that mean we'll be in competition with private companies that are already here. And so I'm not for the city trying to own the broadband system. I am in favor of number 2, where if a private company want to come in and they do all the investment, it comes out of their pocket, they build it, they run it, they operate it, and then it'll be, I don't know, 3 or 4 companies. So that would be competition with each other to help keep the prices down, hopefully. So that's just my opinion.
Mr. Rivera, can you speak to the model of corporate provision of say an enterprise zone or an enterprise product? Like, what if we had multiple water providers to our community instead of, we weren't talking internet, versus what if a city had a model in place that would provide broadband, kind of like we do water, at an affordable rate so that we could make it accessible and available to everyone, and the cost model that maybe is behind that versus a corporate cost model, and what that looks like from a cost perspective to the actual end user. You understand my question?
Mr. Mayor, I think it's an excellent question, and I'm going to defer to City Manager Smith
Good sidestep.
to fill in the blanks.
So there's a lot of facets, so I'll address all of that. But so, we provide water, we provide electricity, and law doesn't allow really someone to be a competitor. So there's not 2 water pipes going to every house or 3 or whatever. So, and so our goal when we price water or we price electricity, we price for what it costs us to deliver it and to maintain the system. And there's not stockholders behind that looking for profit on top of, the cost of doing business. And so I think that's the corporate model. That's what we see right now in broadband, in internet service providers, is they have the cost, but they also have, stockholders that are looking for a profit. And so they have to price and work that way. And they only invest when they can make those certain levels of profit. So that's why we have many areas in the city, like Nate pointed out, that don't have even 1 pipe to the house, let alone 2 or 3. And so the model of providing an infrastructure like a road, like a water pipe that goes to every house, and then this is even better really than our water or electricity model, because it does still allow competition on top of that, like a road. So you can have FedEx and UPS competing to deliver packages because they all have our road to drive on. And that same could be for, Charter and Blue Mountain Networks and, frankly, an ISP that's located in, North Carolina or somewhere. They could provide internet service over our network, and maybe they can do it at a cheaper price than any of our local providers. And so it gives a better model because we're providing the infrastructure. We're going to price that. Every provider is going to pay us to have a system that they can rely on and is maintained. And then they put their price on top of that. So does that kind of get your points?
Yeah, because, distributive models are difficult when you're trying to make corporate profits.
Right.
I mean, the reason I don't have high-speed fiber to my house, it doesn't pay for the corporate entity to bring it to my house, right?
Right.
So, in the other two models, where the city actually builds it out to everybody, we're distributing the cost across everybody, not just the people that can afford it.
Right.
So the people that can't afford it are still getting fiber to their house. So, I just want to make sure that we understand, the differences between a corporate model maybe and a public model. Now, one of the questions I had was, are there communities that do regulate infrastructure? Meaning, like, we only have one water provider in Hermiston.
Oh.
Is that something that's going on in other communities to limit access?
I am not familiar with anybody that handles digital infrastructure as a single access delivery point. I think the FCC would be involved in some of those decision making.
I didn't even know if it was legal. That's
I'm
why.
not familiar with one, like, the electric utility has defined service territories, so we're required to serve everybody within that defined service territory and an obligation.
But nobody else could come in and compete in that market either.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's because we're an entity that is represented by yourselves to
Right.
control the direction. But I'm not familiar with anybody who's doing that with digital infrastructure
Yeah.
model. There may be, but I don't know up here tonight.
I just wonder sometimes, all these providers, how many actual lines are in our ground? I mean, we got 10 or we got 200? And what does that create as far as, underground? I mean, some of these are above ground.
Right.
Some of them are underground. And what does our city look like when we have fiber running everywhere?
I
And
mean,
what
that's
kind of,
where we run into, accidents that happen when
cutting stuff.
construction projects are going on. They cut those because, we don't have an accurate map of where all those are. They can't market, that type of thing.
I'm not into, preventing free enterprise or competition. I believe that's beneficial to, our American success. But, at the same point, is there limitations to who has access to our right of ways and how much? So anyway, Council Primer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in regards to what you were talking about earlier, you've had one possible meeting on option 3, correct?
On the concept, correct.
Okay, so your next meeting could stop it dead in its tracks, and then we're still looking at 1 and 2.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Good to know that. This model that you're talking about in option 3, does that exist anywhere yet?
Yes, it does.
And how is it, and what's the, has there been pluses, minuses? What's been the outcome of this, of a model to where the city is the owner of the infrastructure in regards to digital?
Yeah, Ammon, Idaho is probably the most known model, works extremely well, but the way they finance is it a little different than we would approach it. But as far as the digital infrastructure delivery of this platform, the ability to subscribe, to get public entities signed into it, works very well.
Okay.
And early on in our discussions, we actually had a meeting with Ammon, Idaho staff talking about it and trying to understand how they went about it. This was probably 2 years ago when we had that conversation. but
What's the size of Ammon,
They're
Idaho?
actually about 18. They're a suburb of Idaho Falls,
Okay.
Pocatello, that area. Yeah,
We're about 18.
Idaho Falls.
Hammond?
Ammon, Ammon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Certainly, thank you, Counselor.
What about franchise fees? Currently, when somebody accesses our right of way, we charge them a franchise fee, and that includes telemarketers or internet service providers, right?
Correct, Mr. Mayor.
So in either of your models, 1 and 3, do we still collect a franchise fee?
So we would look at it a little different. It gets a little more complex getting into the weeds of this.
Yeah.
Hermiston Energy Services makes an in lieu of tax payment and then also collects a 2% franchise fee on an ordinance that you adopted. So there would still be a payment on top of that for access to the city's right of ways, which we would leverage to get the digital infrastructure out. So there still would be that franchise fee payment. what council would choose to do with that, could be unique and using some of those fees to help fund this entity.
Hmm.
And so how we use those franchise fees and where they're directed, I think we can be strategic in where those monies would go to. But yes, it would still be in a concept of either an in lieu of tax payment or franchise fee still based on a percentage of sales.
Do our corporate partners pay us a franchise fee? And how much is that?
They're all set at 7%
Okay.
at this point. But I would point out that one of the challenges that we've had over the last couple of years, the federal government thinks that it's different to provide TV service across one line than it is to provide internet service over that same line. So for example, a company that does that, Charter, doesn't have to pay a franchise fee for the internet service coming through the line, but they do for the cable. And so the cable TV. And so that's a little bit of a struggle that we fight with this, the whole internet service provider. We wouldn't want to kill the internet by charging a franchise fee. And that's what some of the prior administrations have their position they've taken. And that's still in place right now where, you know, charters are, even in this current budget year, we guess too high because their revenues are way down on their, because they're not counting the internet service providing. So.
But our other internet service providers pay.
They
franchise,
pay some franchise fee, yes.
but it's not 7%.
It's just a lot, it's 7%, but they're all small players
Okay,
in that.
gotcha. But there is some federal policy that keeps getting presented about pulling that back or cutting
Yeah,
that back,
yeah, it keeps being presented. It hasn't gotten enough traction yet.
right? Because it's, you know, it's franchise fees are becoming a significant source of revenue for a lot of cities and balancing their budgets. And if those fees go away, then we have balanced budget issues again. So, other questions? Yeah, one other thing I would say, Nate, and you know, you guys probably are aware of this, but you know, we started this process 3-4 years ago.
A little over 2.
Okay.
2.5.
And one of the things that came out of COVID was how important access to internet was to how we do business and live today. And during that time period, the federal government realized our infrastructure was lacking significantly. And so they started looking at investing in infrastructure. And so significant dollars have gone out through the federal government to the states in infrastructure. Because of Hermiston's excessive or investment and research in how much actual real boots on the ground people have internet service versus what the digital maps were at the federal level, we were able to share that with Senator Wyden's office and prove that their maps were wrong. And so when they saw this map, they said, Hermiston's got plenty of accessible high-speed internet. And then when we showed them this map, we're like, no, you don't. And so Senator Wyden was able to take our data back to the broadband office and get significantly larger investment in Oregon. So I think it went from like 200 million to 600 million, which was a significant benefit to our state. And a lot of that had to do with the work that you and your strategic partners,
SNG.
Yep. Had done already in our communities, because we actually had valid data of everybody in our city and how bad and wrong their maps were. We were able to fight for more dollars coming back to our community. So thank you for that effort. Thank you to SNG, and big win, frankly, for the state of Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Other questions, comments? Lots to talk about. Are you wanting some action this evening on how we want to proceed?
So my request would be direction to staff to either finalize our work and prepare a final recommendation for you to take action on.
Okay.
Or continue the conversations that may potentially include a regional solution to bring back for council to consider. So I'm essentially just looking for, have the conversations, bring back what you find, or no, your work, you've done enough work, bring back us a recommendation of how we would move forward.
So as far as action goes, this wasn't a listed agenda item. So can we do it by consensus or how does that? Consensus would be okay? Okay, so yeah, Counselor Barone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is,
Going with option two. I
Okay.
don't.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I
see
think,
us
I
getting
think
more
moving
debt.
forward with a regional approach.
Three
I don't think we can be done with just option one. We need to explore all of it before we have a decision.
Regional.
We are such good friends and neighbors to our partners. I do worry about the delay in time in implementation, you know, and the speed of trying to get the service out the door. So I hope we can make this efficient. But I agree. I support a regional collaboration. We have such great neighbors and friends that would like to see us all in this region be successful, including our rural partners, and working with the county, I think is a good model. So sounds like you have consensus to move forward.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and staff. And just know that the work we've done is going to lay the foundation for the regional effort. So we are a long ways down in the effort. We're not starting from zero, and the work we have done is going to assist that conversation quite a
Awesome.
bit. So thank you.
Thanks for the presentation tonight.
You bet.
All right, on to committee reports. Anyone have a committee report this evening? Yes, Council Barone?
Yes, we had a Hispanic Advisory Committee meeting on the third Monday. A couple of updates. Hispanic Advisory Committee recently had their own similar type goal setting session to work on priorities for this year. One of those, so we got an update from DEQ, more specifically about the nitrate update in La Guama. And so they talked about a presentation that was happening in the community, which was past Thursday at Riverside. It was from 6 to 8. I heard it was well attended from many department heads from the governor's cabinet. So that was a really good regional conversation that happened that we talked about at our meeting. We also had an update from Senator Wyden's office. We also know that Kathleen Cathy, the representative, is retiring. So they are going to have someone that those are going to be some big shoes to fill in. But we were really happy with her service and her always coming to the committee, giving us an update on what's going on with the senator and what's going on in the federal government. We also had Kip Morgan, who was a representative from the bar that came by and had a discussion with us about having a candidates forum, but for the judges. It kind of created more of a conversation. I was like, well, we did have a candidate forum, but why didn't we have the judges? And so I think at the time, it wasn't a competitive race. And so that's why there wasn't, I guess, a forum. And so now I believe that there's 2 races that there are competitive races. And so they had a couple of different forums already, I think in Pendleton. And as a result of our meeting, we did talk with Lily to see if we could speak with the city manager about potentially hosting a forum here if it is a contested race, and just kind of seeing it that the public, you know, has an option and have a discussion with their candidates. Other than that, we also have been having an initiative on voter outreach. We've been working with the League of Women Voters, and actually also had an interview on OPB about the initiative that HAC was doing. Recently had the chief of staff from the Secretary of State's office reach out, wanting to support and help us out in that. So that's a conversation that we're still having, but we're really happy to have a little bit more resources poured into our efforts. And other than that, that's what I have for HAC.
So do you have a planned voter registration day or outreach? What's that look like?
Not necessarily. The goal for HAC is more long-term. We do understand that there are elections coming up, and also in November, we are trying to engage and see what we can do to help. Obviously, more voter outreach, but we understand that voter outreach here is going to be a long game. It's more educating our public, and having those conversations oftentimes are one-on-one conversations. So it is going to be more of the long game of what we can do to continuously educate and have people just get in the habit of voting. So I guess to answer your question, in the short term, we're going to do what we can. Really, we're going for the long game.
And then kind of got a big event coming up pretty soon. Do you have an update on that?
Cinco de Mayo, I know that our Cinco de Mayo committee, we are having one unified event. It is going to be a weekend event, and I know that we do have some headliners already. I don't know the specifics about if and when there's going to be a parade. I know that the committee is making posts on their Facebook page, Hermiston Cinco de Mayo. So any updates from them are going to be as real as it gets in terms of up to date and what's going on. So, Councilor Duran, do you have anything to add on that part? Because I'm not really sure a little bit more.
They mentioned that they're holding a pageant on Saturday.
Oh, that's
And
right.
the event is going to take place, whoever the winner will be is actually going to be, visiting with the folks there the day of, which will be the Cinco de Mayo.
Okay, so it's Saturday, Sunday, EOTech,
Yes.
all day. Okay.
And Cinco de Mayo is also on the Chamber Show tomorrow. So they will be presenting there. We also want the ladies who are going to be participating in the pageant to come before HAC and, just have presentations, kind of give their platform, their elevator speech before they actually go ahead and do the real thing. So we're just trying to see how much more we can collaborate and have more things together. So it's pretty good.
Great.
Pretty good HAC meeting.
Any other committee reports? Mayor's report. We had a LOC meeting. The League of Oregon Cities had our presidential regional meeting in LeGrand. Pretty well attended, I would say 30-ish folks, mostly administrators and mostly from West Umatilla County. So kind of interesting. Not very many people from, down around LeGrand or in Wallowa or anything up there. So yeah, a lot of good representation from our region. We're pretty active over here. So it's good to see all the people down there. Also, this week is the LOC Spring Conference, which is in Klamath Falls. Anybody going? Councilor Harden? No. No. Councilor Linton, are you going? Yes. All right, very good. So I'll see you down there. The spring conference is our smaller conference. I have about 160, 170 attendees. We'll have over 200 people with vendors and administrative staff, that sort of stuff there. But it's regionally based, and so we moved it around the state. You guys are very familiar with it. We had it here in Hermiston a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. Yes, it was a fun event. And so we try to move the smaller ones around the state. The bigger one, which is in the fall, has to be in kind of a major center of hotels and venue space that can host, 400, 500 people. That one is in October, so hopefully you guys are looking at that one as well as a potential opportunity to be better educated and more informed on what we do every day in our city council meetings and the items that are important and pressing to the state and our communities. Council reports. Yeah, Councilor Peterson.
So I've been kind of working on a project on the side, but I've been doing it with Travel Oregon. There's it's called, and I want to make sure I get the wording right. The Hermiston Herald did a nice piece on it, and if you go to, it was on April 16th, the local workshops focusing on expanding accessible spaces. Said, pardon the frog in my throat. But basically what it is they are finding ways of helping businesses learn how to be more accessible to their disabled customers. And they call it like the Blue Path. And it is a matter of workshops and having somebody come in and actually take a look at your brick and mortar place and say, okay, well, here's some recommendations we could make. And then if the business owner follows through, then they get to have their basically their dot on the blue path And then that way, somebody with a disability who wants to go be a tourist can actually plan their trip accordingly. Because if you have a disability, whether it's mobility or invisible disability, what have you, and you're trying to figure out the best locations to go, it's nice to be able to take the guesswork out of it. So, if you go to EOVA /accessible, there is a way to sign up. It is free. There was originally a $15 charge, but now it's free. And you just participate in a little workshop. And again, the Hermiston Herald did a story on it on April 16th about accessible spaces. I highly recommend you take a look at it. And the workshops are pretty awesome. They're very interactive, and it's a cohort model. So you have people that you're working with and that are actually part of the process. So I've been kind of helping out with that. And the Chamber of Commerce in Pendleton and I believe Hermiston and Umatilla have all been on board with it as well. So anyway, check it out. It's pretty cool, and tell people that that have brick and mortar customer bases that keep an eye out for the Blue Path. Although I told them they should call it the Blazing the Blue Trail, because just sounds a little bit more commercial, but that's me.
Others, Council Linton?
I'm going to direct my question to City Manager Byron, then he can send the question to whoever should answer it. That's how I'm going to get around asking the Chief of Police. My question is, have we ever had any female sergeants in the Hermiston Police Department? And if not, when will we have a female sergeant?
Yeah, there was.
Was?
Choice, right?
We have in the past, yes.
How long ago, please?
2000, left in 2013, 14.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or council comments? Council reports? Yes, Council Bremer?
So just for what it's worth, department, last week was National Telecommunicators Week. We have, two 911 operators here in the room with us. So it's the week to recognize, the people that answer the call when the number is called. And quite frankly, as a cop, they're my heroes. So I want to say that right off the bat. And then I could go into a whole long dissertation on it, but I don't think that's necessary at this point in time. Also, I attended the opening of the Horizon. Myself and City Manager Smith attended the opening of the Horizon Projects Step Center. Yes, and well attended. A lot of information out there. They're doing fantastic work there. So I'm looking forward to seeing that taking blossom. It's in the building that Smoke City Regently, and then prior to that was the old liquor store. So it's moving up in the world, I guess. But they're doing great work there, and I am extremely proud of what I saw there. So kudos to those folks.
Okay. Other council reports? Yes, Councilor Harden.
Well, there were several of us that attended the UEC meeting. And I was excited to see all the activities going up on EOTech, because they had lacrosse going on. They had something with rodeo and then the UEC meeting. So it's good to see that building being well used and in our community. And so I was,
That's cool.
yeah. So, but it was a good meeting with UEC.
Did you win anything?
Yes, I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I got, I don't know how I'm gonna
Cameras,
use, yeah,
isn't
right,
there?
camera, yeah.
Oh, nice.
But anyhow, yeah,
Congratulations.
that's probably my once or second, maybe the second time I've won something. But they did a good job. I'm
Yeah,
real
it looked
pleased.
really nice in there too. I don't know who dressed it all up. I'm sure Al and the staff up there, UEC, I think brought some stuff in too, but it looked really nice in there.
Yeah.
Councilor McCarthy?
Thank you. Just, I know that Val Hoxie won't be present before we have our next council meeting. So I'll speak on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, is that board elections are happening right now and you have until, I believe, May 3rd. So if you are a representative who is able to vote on behalf for your board members, there are 3 seats that are open and I think 4 candidates. So pick the 3 that you like. They're all in, they've been released in a chamber email, and those candidates will serve in their first meeting on the 3rd Tuesday of May.
Okay. Mr. Primer, you still had something?
Yeah, I have one more thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about. There's a deal going on that's in support of the Umatilla County Search and Rescue. There was a documentary made called The End of the Rope in regards to search and rescue. And a lot of the proceeds from this are going towards search and rescue efforts. It's Thursday at 6 p.m. at the theater here. There's also several other places it's playing. But they're doing the movies at 6 p.m. and there's also, or at 7 o'clock, I should say. And then also at Saturday at 9 a.m. is the beginning of it, and 10 o'clock. And I believe this week is also National Volunteerism Week, celebrating the volunteers that do a lot of the jobs that you can't pay people to do, you know? So, again, to all those who volunteer their time and effort, similar to what we're doing right here. Thank you. So.
Yeah. I will echo that. You know, a community is only as strong as the volunteer structure in which we have to support it. We don't survive, and a lot of good things that get done in our community are done because of volunteerism and people through their altruism and financial gifting to the community make it what it is. And we're blessed to live in the community that we live in because we've got some amazing volunteers and volunteer organizations. Anything else, Counselor? Okay, Manuel, welcome. Our youth advisor. Anything going on?
I wouldn't really call it much of a report. I mostly have some questions after I say my report, but at the Hermiston High School, the theater department is on May 25th. We'll have another show called Murder Mystery. Will be at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Those are the performance dates on May 25th. It will be it'll be basically also a full dinner. So there will be a steak dinner and there will also be a dessert. I believe with the show, and also I think it'll be priced around $40 or $50. We're talking to Miss Bemrose. I honestly, some people were saying they would pay 50. Honestly, I'd pay 40 instead, but I do have a question for Mr. Smith. Maria came up earlier talking about putting up a food truck, and you said there were some restrictions, or maybe there were some restrictions that made it a little difficult. And I just wanted to ask, is there anywhere I can look, or I can ask you what are like those restrictions that make it difficult?
Yeah, actually, if you can just talk to Clint, he can give you the code sections where those restrictions are.
All right.
Look it on our website.
All right. And one more question. Is something I wanted to ask, since we are in a stage in Hermiston where we are kind of expanding outward more and more, but I kind of want to see a refocus back here in the center of Hermiston. It would be asking, would there be any possible way that to talk about adding a new zone code, a mixed use zone code? Because I was looking at the map for Hermiston, and it doesn't seem like it has one. And it would just be a suggestion just to allow a little more freedom for individuals who decide to invest in Hermiston and they want to build something, but maybe they don't want they can't build exactly where they want, or there's some zone that's restricting them. It's kind of like giving them more options how to build, where to build. And I just want to know if there's any way we could provide that for individuals who want to invest in Hermiston.
Why don't we, I mean, I think we, sit down discussion with Clint, our planning director, and myself, we could give you some answers about kind of options and how we would address a mixed use type development, because it is possible. So.
Yeah,
I don't know
Manuel,
if you-
those are all great questions, but probably should be done, outside of this scope, and feel free to make an appointment with Clint or Byron anytime to talk through
I
those
do.
kind of code sort of issues.
Yeah, I thought it would be here more than with the city because I thought it would have to be.
We lost you. Jillian, can you give us share a mic? Sounds like the mic went. Oh, can we share Jason's?
Hello?
No, now we hear you.
Yeah, sorry. I just assumed that talking about new zoning stuff would have to pass through the city council. That's why I thought I would.
Yep, all those recommendations come back through the city administrator. He'll make a recommendation back to us for that approval.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great way to start though, is start with the administrator and the planning director. Any other questions or comments, Memo? All right, thank you. Mr. Smith?
I just do, to follow up on what Mr. Barone said, Thursday, April 25th, 6:30, here is going to be that, circuit court candidate forum, sponsored by the local bar association. And, we would have been happy, I'm sure the chamber would have been happy to include that in their, candidate forum earlier, but the bar hadn't approached or hadn't asked or whatever. So in the future, they can know to help maybe bring that to pass on the same timeline, but
Okay.
that's happening Thursday night, 6:30.
Ribbon cutting coming up?
May 11th tomorrow, the tactile map, 5:00, out at Funland. So come and see that. I know, Mr. Klepney is pretty excited about it, so.
So the new tactile map will be unveiled tomorrow, 5:00 at Funland. So if you all can make it, that'd be great.
Yep.
And then we have another
The skate park is at, May 11th.
May 11th. So a couple events coming up here pretty soon, to participate. So hopefully you got those on your calendar. Anything else, Mr. Smith?
That's it.
Council, anything else for the good of the order?
No, sir.
We're adjourned.
Okay, my nose is blue, all right? No. Oh, you can't be.